Hi, everyone. Welcome once again to One on One, the show that discusses everything that's going on in Utah Valley High School athletics. I'm Jared Lloyd, prep sports reporter for the Daily Herald, here with my colleague Neil Warner. And unbelievably, I know this will come as a shock to a lot of our viewers, but Neil Warner, believe it or not, actually picked a basketball game correctly last week. He actually got one right. Up until this point in the season, I didn't believe he knew anything about basketball. I'm very impressed, Neil. You got at least one correct.
Oh, come on, Jared. One right? I mean, yeah, you have been a little bit lucky early on in the season, but it's like the first quarter. I mean, you have a lead in the first quarter and you're all celebrating. This is ridiculous. I was dominating last week, Jared. There was no question about it. It's just a matter of time. Just like they beat the Zook football contest, I trailed early, and I actually was the overall winner of that. I'll do the same thing when they beat the Zook basketball contest.
But you got to understand, this wasn't just a lead in the first quarter. I was shutting you out. I was up like 12-0.
That wasn't a shutout. What are you talking about?
I was up big before last week.
Right?
Oh, every once in a while. Okay, it wasn't 12-0. It was like 20-3.
It was a run.
So you hit a 3. Now it's 20-6. Okay,
but just like basketball is a game of runs, I'm on a run now.
If you're down big in the first quarter, you got trouble. If you're down big in the first quarter, you got your work cut out for you. And that's where you're at.
I'll come back.
Oh, well, I'll believe it when I see it.
All right.
Well, Neil might not like to admit it, the basketball season is already almost a month old. They've already been playing games for about 4 weeks. Neil, what have you learned so far this year?
Well, I'll tell you, the one thing that people probably have a hard time distinguishing between is teams that look bad early aren't really as bad as they appear to be. Teams get better throughout the season. I mean, you can look at a team early on and think, this team is terrible, and then a month later, hey, they're pretty good. You know, Timpview is a good example of that. They looked awful in their opener against Mountain Crest, and when I saw that game, and then I went to Friday's game against American Fork and thought, wow, this team is good. Mm-hmm. I mean, never look at a team and think they're really, really bad off one performance. Teams get better throughout the year. And so, I mean, I think you have to keep that in mind. Teams that aren't playing well now are going to be peaking later on.
Well, and I agree with that statement, but I think there's also a flip side you have to look at. Sometimes you see teams with bloated records that haven't gone up against the toughest competition. I don't know. Some people could argue that Mountain View's that type of team. I don't know. But every once in a while, you'll see a team that comes out of the gate, 6-2 or 7-1, something like that, and then they get to region play, and they go on a 3 or 4 game losing streak because they haven't been playing that level of competition. So it does go both ways. Sometimes you'll have a team that looks really good that kind of struggles when it gets into league play, as well as the other way, building up. You know what I've learned the most, though, Neil, about watching games so far, is it is going to be a heck of a lot of fun this season to watch when they get to league play. There's a lot of very good players out there, a lot of very good teams. I've been lucky. I've seen 3 or 4 really, really classic games go down to the final possession, last shot, overtime, those type of contests. I really am excited to see some of these league matchups. I'm excited to see Provo-Timpview, always a fun game. Lone Peak-Pleasant Grove really turning into a big rivalry every year. There's going to be a lot of fun basketball coming up in the next couple of months before we get to the state
basketball. Tournament. I mean, when we put the top 5 rankings together for the paper, I do the boys and you do the girls. I mean, I've got 5 teams with 1 loss or less.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
So we've got good talent, and this is no surprise. Every year, Utah County is loaded with basketball talent, and they just continue to be dominant in the state. And I don't think this year is an exception.
I don't think so either, and it just whets my appetite to get into those league games that mean more than these preseason contests.
Well, last week, Jared, I know you had a unique opportunity to see the top 2 teams in Utah County. You saw both Lone Peak and Pleasant Grove play. Tell me your thoughts on those 2 teams.
I saw both teams. I saw Pleasant Grove play at Payson and win fairly handily over the Lions, which are a little, they're still growing. And I saw Lone Peak beat up on Bingham on Friday. So Wednesday and Friday, I saw both teams. And you know what I came away from those 2 games thinking is that each team can do something against the other team when they meet because their strengths are completely different. Pleasant Grove's strengths is forcing turnovers, getting up and down the floor, turning the game into a track meet. Lone Peak struggled a little bit with Bingham's pressure during that game. They had 12 second-half turnovers. You flip it around, though, and Pleasant Grove gave up 24 points to Seth Lovell from Payson inside. Well, you look at Lone Peak, I mean, they're one of the tallest teams in Utah Valley history, probably. I mean, they've got a lot of big kids down there, and that's one of their strengths is going inside. So when those two teams meet, I think it's going to come down to which team can impose their will. Can Pleasant Grove get up and down the floor, or can Lone Peak control the ball and get it inside? Because it's going to come down to which team can do what they want to do. That's going to determine who wins the game. It's exciting to see what will happen.
Those two games, those two region games are going to be the not missed games of the year for sure. And I wish they would move those games, because at Pleasant Grove there isn't going to be a seat in the house.
Oh no! Get there an hour early.
And
probably.
This is top prep basketball. Two of the top teams, I think, not only in Utah but in the West. Mm-hmm. I mean, these teams can compete with other teams around the country. And it's going to be a heck of a game. So I have not seen Lone Peak yet. I have seen Pleasant Grove. I like what I see, Jared.
Well, I like both teams. I do think that they're a step above all of the other teams in the region. Spanish Fork's really good, but I think they're a step behind.
I'd say they're a step above the other teams in the other region as well.
Well, I probably agree with that, although I haven't seen those teams yet. Davis is supposed to be pretty good. I don't know how good they are because I haven't seen them. But those two teams are very, very talented, but they do have things that they need to improve on. Lone Peak needs to work on hanging onto the ball, not turning it over against pressure. They're still improving in that area. PG's got to work on their interior defense. Well, as we talked about, Lone Peak played Bingham, and in that game, the Miners tried to throw off the Knights by playing by just holding the ball for much of the first quarter. Neil, do you like seeing teams use unorthodox tactics like a stall?
Well, if you're talking about do I like to see the stall, no. I mean, it's terrible for basketball. I mean, I don't see anything good that can come of the stall. People don't want to go see someone stand there and hold the ball. I mean, I understand it. It's part of the game. If you're trying to bring someone out of a zone to make them play man and you have the lead, then that responsibility falls on the defense. But just to stall, to shorten the game because you know you can't beat the other team is a terrible way to see a basketball game.
Well, I agree. It's terrible to watch. It's extremely boring. But this used to be the norm years and years ago. Whenever you went up against a team.
That doesn't make it good.
But as long as it's legal, I say it's okay to use it.
Okay, first of all, it shouldn't be legal. Instead of
I wouldn't mind having a shot clock. I wouldn't mind that.
Now, that's where I'm going.
But until they do that, right now you can use it.
Now, instead of putting a third official on the game, and you've seen this already, we've added a third official for some of the 5A games.
For the 5A this year.
And all of a sudden, we're in the bonus in the first quarter. Mm-hmm. Apparently, we think we have to call a foul on every play. This is a terrible idea. Go back to the two-man crew, take the money, and use a shot clock.
Well, I wouldn't mind seeing a shot clock, and I don't know about the 2 or 3 man because I think both the referees and the teams are getting used to it because there's some different dynamics. So I'm not gonna slaughter the 3-man crew just yet. But in my opinion, until they go to a shot clock, you use the tools you have.
It's legal, but it's not accepted in the basketball world as an acceptable way to win. I don't even think the kids want to do it. Jared, do the kids want to win that way?
Well, probably not. No, but do they want to win?
They want to win, but not that way.
Well, what if you can't win any other way?
Well, you take your chances. You take your chances and hope that you can meet the challenge. I just don't think that. I would not want to be part of that. I would not want to be on a team and hold the ball and win 8-6. I just wouldn't want to do it. Even if I won, I'd be thinking, we won, but I feel horrible. That's just me.
Okay, well, I understand where you're coming from, but in my opinion, if it's like the timeout call in the NFL right before the field goal kicker.
It's not.
In my opinion, as long as it's a legal thing,
you
can use it.
It's legal, but I don't
use it as a tool.
Okay, you can use it as a tool, and I understand it's legal, but I just don't like it.
Okay, well, I understand that because I don't like it as an observer either, but it's legal, so use it.